Good morning and welcome to Stambaugh Auditorium. This is a very special meeting. We are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the very first board meeting of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association, which took place on August 3rd, 1920. And to put that in historical context, Henry Stambaugh died in January of 1919, and under his will left a bequest, which led to the creation of Stambaugh Auditorium, and it was constructed under the oversight of the board and completed in 1926, opening in December of that year with Will Rogers as the first performer. So it's a very exciting day for us. In a few minutes, we're going to be showing a video which will recap the history of Henry Stambaugh, that first board meeting, and how the auditorium was created. So that video will talk about the original board members, but we're filling in for them now with the current board, and so I'd like to, this is an official meeting, so I would like to take a roll call and thereby introduce the current board members. I think we do not have a connection with Zoom at the moment, so our first board member is our newest one, and she could not be here physically, but she's waiting by her computer, but that is Cheryl MacArthur, and so we're very happy to have her on the board. Our other board members are Michael Christ, John Urian, he is not arrived yet, he's coming from out of town, Scott Schulich, Mark Gasser, Tracy Stevens, our treasurer, David Koenig, and our vice president, Jean Simeone. We are very happy that we could all be here. We have some special guests today. We have one of our emeritus trustees, attorney Ted Roberts. He was on the board for many years. We're very happy you could be here. You've been so supportive of us. We have another special guest, Mr. Bill Conti, past president of Stambaugh Auditorium, served multiple terms, and Stambaugh would not be what it is without Bill's contribution, so that's fabulous. And we're very lucky to have the Honorable Robert Russo, judge of the Mahoney County Probate Court. And he's been a great supporter of the auditorium, and we sincerely appreciate it. Aside from remembering or honoring the first board meeting, we're also honoring the memory and legacy of Henry Stambaugh. And he left a very special gift to the community in the form of this auditorium. And we now have a video which is going to go into some detail about that.
Since December 1926, Stambaugh Auditorium has been host to speakers, weddings, local graduation ceremonies, regionally and nationally acclaimed artists, as well as many private events. Stambaugh Auditorium is the original home of the Youngstown Symphony Orchestra, and for over 80 years the Monday Musical Club called the building home. Presently, Opera Western Reserve, the Stambaugh Youth Concert Band, the Stambaugh Chorus, and many Youngstown State University Dana School of Music ensembles utilize the facility for rehearsals and performances. The building was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. This great history would not be possible without the generosity of Henry H. Stambaugh. Henry Hamilton Stambaugh, son of John and Caroline Hamilton Stambaugh, was born on November 24, 1858 in Youngstown, Ohio. After studying locally, Mr. Stambaugh graduated from Cornell University, class of 1881. As a young businessman, he served the iron and coal industry and worked with the Briar Hill Iron and Coal Company, first as secretary, then treasurer, and finally as president of the company. He was a founder of the Briar Hill Steel Company and served as a director of the Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company. Mr. Stambaugh, one of the city's most influential citizens, was not only an industrialist and businessman, but also a philanthropist who cared deeply about the people of the city of Youngstown and surrounding communities. While visiting New Orleans, Louisiana, Henry Stambaugh passed away from unknown circumstances on January 4, 1919, at the age of 60. His death coming just 2 months after his will was drafted and signed. In his will, Henry left numerous bequests to his family, to business acquaintances, and to local community organizations. He left his farm in Canfield for the purpose of establishing a Boy Scout camp, which is now known as Camp Stambaugh. His farm in Liberty Township was donated to the city of Youngstown to be used as a park and recreation area and is now known as Stambaugh Golf Course. The community chest, now known as the United Way of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley, the Youngstown Foundation, and many more charitable organizations all benefited from Henry's generosity. The most recognized legacy of Mr. Stambaugh is the portion of his estate that was bequeathed for the construction of a public auditorium for the citizens of Youngstown and surrounding areas. In his will, Henry named as trustees John Stambaugh, Asa E. Adams, Rollin C. Steese, William B. Hall, and Philip J. Thompson, and charged them with the task of securing a convenient and proper site and erecting thereon an auditorium suitable and adequate for the needs of the residents and citizens of the city of Youngstown. Further, Henry stated that the auditorium be used for the enjoyment, pleasure, entertainment, and education of the community residing in Youngstown and contiguous thereto. On August 3, 1920, the trustees named in Henry Stambaugh's last will and testament came together at the Dollar Bank Building in Youngstown, Ohio, for the first meeting of what would become the Board of Directors of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association. Mr. Philip Thompson introduced the resolution that the positions of officers of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association would be President, Vice President, Secretary, and Treasurer. Also resolved was that both the office of President and Vice President shall, at all times, be held by trustees of the association. The offices of Secretary and Treasurer may or may not be held by trustees, and may or may not be held by the same person. A motion was made and seconded that the officers should serve for 1 year. John Stambaugh, brother and business partner of Henry Stambaugh, was elected president. William B. Hall, a business and community leader, was elected vice president. Charlotte Todd, cousin of Henry and daughter of David Todd and Annabelle Stambaugh Todd, was elected secretary and treasurer. Other members of the Board of Trustees included Asa E. Adams, a cousin of Henry and president of the Dollar Savings and Trust Company, Rollin C. Steese, a chemist for the Briar Hill Iron and Coal Company and a future director of the Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company, and Philip J. Thompson, president of the Stambaugh Thompson Company. The last order of business was the adoption of a fiscal year of the period of time between November 1st to October 31st. Upon a motion made, the meeting was adjourned, and that was the beginning of Stambaugh Auditorium. The board's work of selecting a site and design and overseeing the construction of the building would continue over the next 6 years until the building opened to the public on December 6, 1926.
Well, I speak for everyone. That was wonderful. And as a film fan, I always like to watch all the credits. And the credits were all people we know, our colleagues here. So that was really good. So as part of our celebration of the history of Stambaugh Auditorium as we approach our 100th anniversary of the opening of the facility, which was in 1926, we are going to have a series of videos such as this that will be released with all sorts of aspects of the history of Stambaugh. So those can be viewed on our website and on the YouTube channel. So please look for those. If you're on our mailing list, I'm sure you'll be notified of when they're being released. So that's something to look forward to. As we saw, it was Henry Stambaugh's wish that the auditorium be constructed for the enjoyment, pleasure, entertainment, and education of the citizens of Youngstown and the surrounding areas. That became our mission of Stambaugh Auditorium. And as members of the board, we are committed to preserving this fabulous building, but also to adhere to that mission and to be here for the community. So, to further that, today, as an order of business, we'd like to adopt a resolution reaffirming that mission. So I'm going to read the resolution. On behalf of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association, we hereby propose this resolution. Whereas the Board of Directors of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association commemorates the 100th anniversary of the first board meeting of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association Board, which was held on August 3rd, 1920. Whereas the original trustees of the organization, John Stambaugh, Asel E. Adams, Rollin S. Steese, William B. Hall, and Philip J. Thompson, were named in the last will and testament of Henry H. Stambaugh and were entrusted with the task of securing a convenient and proper site and erecting thereon an auditorium suitable and adequate for the needs of the residents and citizens of the city of Youngstown. Whereas the original trustees were entrusted with assuring that, as stated in the last will and testament of Henry H. Stambaugh, the purpose of the auditorium is to be used for the enjoyment, pleasure, entertainment, and education of the community residing in Youngstown and contiguous thereto. Whereas this final wish of Henry H. Stambaugh became the mission for the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association, we now therefore be it resolved that the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association Board of Directors reaffirms the legacy of Henry H. Stambaugh and their commitment to preserve and sustain Stambaugh Auditorium and ensure that it remains a place for the enjoyment, pleasure, entertainment, and education of the people of Youngstown and surrounding communities. At this time, I would ask a motion from the board to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Thank you. Mike Christ made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think we have two, Scott Schulich and David Koenig. Very good. The motion is now on the floor. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No one opposing. The motion is adopted. Thank you very much. We are certainly in challenging times, and as a group, we are committed to sustaining Stambaugh Auditorium and preserving our mission for the next century ahead of us. So, at this point, our next order of business, Matt Pajek, our Chief Executive and Operating Officer, will give a report.
Thank you, Terry. For those of you that don't know me, the staff here would tell you that I'm a lover of local history. So this sort of thing, a day like today, is really a great opportunity for me to be a part of. And I look forward to the things that we are going to be doing over the next few years, going towards our 100th anniversary celebration. We started a little over a year ago digging through the archives here. I was just blown away by the amount of material that is here in this building, not just about this building, but about Henry's life. There are letters from Henry written when he was alive that have been sitting in this building for 94 years, which is just crazy to think that they've just been sitting in this building. One of those things that we have that's really neat to me is the front page of the Vindicator. I think we have a slide of it. This is the front page of the Vindicator from the day before this building opened. There's a copy of this hanging in the East Side Hall along the concert hall. It always impressed me how much the building still looks like this today. It's unmistakably the same place. And it's just really neat that Youngstown has been able to preserve this facility in such a great way that there's no doubt that it's the same place. 100 years ago, when this first board meeting was happening, the United States and the world had just come out of a pandemic, very similar to what we find ourselves in today, with very similar regulations and challenges. And it's interesting that here we are again. in this same kind of situation. Since this past March, a lot of challenges have been faced by all of us, including here at Stambaugh Auditorium. 2020 was on track to be one of our best years, possibly one of our best years ever. When we had to stop events on March 12th, we were just about 45 days into a run of 105 events in 120 days. We had a really, really busy spring and early summer, and it's been quite a challenge to watch all that go away and all the other changes that have come along. Unfortunately, because of what has gone on, we've had to lay off over 50% of our full-time staff, nearly all of our part-time staff. Our operating budget for the new fiscal year that started in July 1 had to be reduced by 65% over what we were planning. There's still, and there have been, lots of cancellations and postponements, which have all been a really big challenge, but we still continue to work hard every day to find the opportunities and possibilities for the future of this facility and many others. We have done all the things that everyone else has done as well, the staffing changes and cut expenses and applied for economic relief, weekly, sometimes daily conversations with the local health officials, all of those sorts of things. But we're also doing things like changing our business model, looking at doing hybrid and virtual events. If you've been paying attention to our social media and YouTube and website over the last few months, we've been posting past performances of the youth band and opera and other events that have taken place here that we've really video recorded as an archive for never thinking it would get used in this way. We've also been working on producing some other events that will be being announced soon, that will be virtual events. We've put a lot into exploring partnership opportunities with other organizations, other cultural organizations in the community. So there's a lot happening, even though we're not doing all the events in person like we have. Something to keep in mind, in many ways, a period of difficulty, just much like the one we're currently in, led to the efforts of Henry Stambaugh to help the community he loved, which made Stambaugh Auditorium and many other Youngstown institutions possible. The struggles we face today will be overcome by opportunity and innovation both here at Stambaugh Auditorium and throughout the area. At this time, I'd like to introduce our staff, most of whom are currently very busy and are not going to be able to say hi. First of all, Danny Deere, our business manager.
Courtney Green, production coordinator. Jamie Marshall, marketing and design manager. Brandon Ritchie, operations coordinator. Brandon's on vacation this week, so he's not here today. Kelly McKee-Foose, marketing and design assistant. Kim Slattery, chief financial officer. Dave Walsh, operations staff. Travis Beatty, operations and production staff. Travis is running the camera today.
Joanne Stock, our chief development officer, and Joanne has some things to add.
Thank you, Matt. As we commemorate the legacy of Henry Stambaugh, it is also important to remember the generous support of the community that has helped us to sustain Stambaugh Auditorium for all of these years. We deeply appreciate each and every donor who has helped to carry on the philanthropic tradition that was set by Henry and to help with the support of general operating support as well as the many capital projects that have been funded over the years. Just to name a few, we have ongoing support from the George F. Stambaugh Trust and the Ann Chrisman Charitable Trust, which help to sustain our operating cost. We can always remember the funds that have been raised by volunteer groups, including the Stambaugh Pillars and the Monday Musical Club, that have provided both operating and capital support. Thanks to the support of these donors, Stambaugh events are offered at reasonable ticket prices and at times are presented free of charge in order to reflect that mission of Henry Stambaugh and his legacy to serve our community. Board-led initiatives have helped to raise funds necessary to preserve and restore areas within the auditorium, including this beautiful Gene D. Tyler Grand Ballroom, the Ann Chrisman Memorial Hall, and the restoration of the E.M. Skinner pipe organ in our concert hall. And now we are focusing on the exterior of the building and are in the process of raising funds to return the monumental staircase, the grand entrance, and the facade of the building to its original splendor. We hope to break ground on this project in the spring of 2021. None of these projects or initiatives would be possible without the support of our local foundations, individual major gift donors, and the general public. We are so grateful to the community for their continued support. As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has had a devastating impact on each of us personally, as well as on our community, the country, and the world. And with continued closures and bans on mass gatherings such as concerts, the arts and culture sector has been especially hard hit. We know that recovery will be slow, and as Matt said, we are using this time to adjust our business model in order to be able to adapt to the current environment and to continue to be relevant as we move through this crisis. We continue to engage and expand our relationships with our community partners and continue to engage the community in supporting the work of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association. Especially now, during these trying times, support from our community will be more important than ever. With the support of our donors, Stambaugh Auditorium has been able to provide enjoyment and create lasting memories for thousands of individuals and families who have experienced events at this majestic and historic venue, and together we will continue to do it so well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. This concludes our special meeting. I want to thank all of you for attending as we commemorate Henry Stambaugh and the first ever board meeting of the Henry H. Stambaugh Auditorium Association. I want to thank the current board for their continued support and dedication to preserve Stambaugh Auditorium and the mission that we embrace. I want to thank the staff who works incredibly hard. In the best of times, they work incredibly hard. It's like, I wouldn't want to put in one full day here as they do, but under the current circumstances, they have to work hard and come up with ingenious ways to make this place function and be of value to the community. So we commemorate you for doing that. And lastly, we'd like to thank the community who has supported us in good times and bad. So I think we've got a little of each right now. So that concludes our meeting. It's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.